Welcome. Today, I invite you. I invite you to be a little open to the unexpected. In attempting to plan this, I've been reframed repeatedly. I've been changed, prepared for something beyond what I can anticipate. This is real chin chakra stuff. There's a lot happening. On a personal level, I'm coming through a period of digesting some really intense layers of trauma. And I have to tell you, I've been facing my deepest fears in a way I did not know how. And the empowerment is something incredible to be a part of. It is absolutely a core gift that I believe I have to give to you. I recently spoke with an old friend. He told me some sad news about 3 teachers in the world that I've held with respect. Like really bad news about one of them and just unhappy news about another 2. And it adds to my layer of frustration and it really a primal scream of like, how do we make this work? How do I make my role work? Because so many of the archetypes are tainted, sick, and it's hard to move deeper when the road is cluttered with such a mess. Things in the world suck. Now, look, I saw an interview with a Palestinian spokesman who said, it seems that the news begins when white people die. Such a beautiful, clear way of saying it. And my wife's mother, my mother-in-law, grew up with someone who is now a hostage. And that level of personal connection is earth-shattering. It brings home something that is harder to bring home when you don't have a personal connection. And yes, I think a lot of people make a personal connection out of people who look more like us, which is, I believe, quite natural. I think people of every culture do that. The problem is the world is framed around this bias in way too many ways. And that is the heart of today. Before we get into it, I want to say 2 things. One is hello. I am wearing my poor glasses. I set the intention to be much more engaging today and immediately lost the glasses that allowed me to read the dialogue. So this is heartbreaking for me. My preference would be to be with you far more, engaging interplay. The truth of the matter is I am extremely empathic. And one of the reasons YouTube and online work has been so much more functional for me is I do have a tendency to err towards other people's vibration. It is very easy for me to tune into people. So someone comes into the room, I tune into their vibe, I can shift to be in relation to them. And that's in general going to produce the most intimate, intense healing experience. What it means is I'm changing for each person that I connect with, and that's not very functional in a lot of ways. So the gift of YouTube is it does create this distance. And in reality, the greatest gift I have to give to you, hands down, is the ability to tune to the way the world is changing. I made a leap. I saw a potential within myself to tune in to the future. I had several predictions go well in my 20s, and I was like, I began to sense myself as someone who knew how to see where things are going. And I made the boldest Boldest dream, boldest prayer I could make. And it worked. It was a rough ride. But the result is, in my 20s, in 1999, in fact, I saw a heart of the way the world is transforming. And then I committed to doing the work to tune into it, and it worked. So now I know how to maintain this vibration. But again, I do have this potential to like stray out into you, stray out into anyone who starts talking to me. And that's not the gift I'm here to give you. The gift I'm here to give you is this attunement. The attunement is not about information. The information is greatly helpful because it leaves you with the tools, the awareness, the perspective to maintain your attunement. The attunement to the way the world is transforming has a lot of bastions. There are many things that we can trust, and you can reference reality. One of them is, by the way, hatred is bad. Ooh, really out there, right? And yet, when you look at how the world functions, hatred and its mother, fear, are really intimately entwined. Now, when you allow yourself to make decisions in fear, what can happen is the fastest way out of fear is anger. And it's rational. It's like you get your grr going, right? Okay, so now you've made a momentum out of fear into grr, an intensity, an active power that allows you to do something. Not necessarily the wisest force, however. Channeling such power is much more than just, sort of knowing how to see what's right in front of your face. You have to navigate from an ongoing practice. We have to practice. You practice for the extreme moments when intense passions come in, and then the practice is in you. It's here to help you guide yourself. When you realize that yourself is like a ship, like there's momentum to you. There's momentum that pulls you with itself. And if you have not created an inner practice that sets the values by which you navigate, you'll get carried away in collective fear and anger. Starts to make sense. We have these things called mirror neurons. Don't know if you've heard about them. They're just a tangible expression of what happens energetically. Really, it happens energetically first. If there's a strong enough vibration in any environment, physically, in the physical world, if there's a strong enough vibration near you, it is very difficult to do something different than that vibration. That vibration will retune you. It pulls you towards it. It's electromagnetic. And it pulls your electromagnetic field to like bend and reshift the frequency by which your own energy field operates. And so your own energy field ends up tuning into this intense presence right in your environment. And then it becomes really challenging to do anything else. And this is how every dictator has ever moved people. There is a fear, and someone comes along and says, I have an answer to the fear. And they manage to generate enough momentum that everybody's like, well, it sucks to be in this puddle of fear. So now we're moving. Now we're being told how to navigate. If you don't have within you a moral and spiritual alignment that is present in normal life, day to day, you can't withstand this kind of force. Misty, welcome. Thank you for being here. Tom. Jean, good to see you. It's wonderful. Minty. Hello to you all. I will not be as interactive as I want to be. But first, I'm going to tell you something. Where did my fire go? Where did my fire go? There we go. It will be clear why this is relevant in a moment. This is cedar. I burn it to help heal evil. I am making a prayer to begin to learn a whole new field. I want to learn how to engage collective trauma. I want to learn how to engage environmental karma, the karma and the resonance of the land. About 8 years ago, 9 years ago, a woman walked into my office. I had an office here. She asked me for a reading, and the second she asked, I felt her. At the time, I was putting an extraordinary amount of effort into not reading people until they gave me permission. And ultimately, I think it was the wrong boundary to instill. It's kind of like saying, I'm going to keep my eyes closed all the time until you let me open them, which is, it's an absurd request anyway. I see, my third eye is very open in certain ways, and I see what's happening to people, and it's emanating from you. It's right there. Plenty of beings see far more effectively than I do. Probably not too many humans, though. But at the time, I was attempting to limit myself until I was given permission, because it is so intimate and it is so revealing. I learned so much about people. Well, the second she gave me permission, I felt her throat, and I felt like I was going to choke. I tuned into her throat, and it looked like she was being garroted. It was like there was an intense wire choking her. It's an extraordinary and necessary part of getting this deep, that to see that is to feel it, and to feel it is to be able to disengage from it. If you don't know how to differentiate between what you're seeing and what becomes you, this mirror neuron pattern happens. So there's this magnetism into what you see, and you end up with harmonic resonance. Your vibration will take on what you're seeing. So in order to see beyond a certain point, you have to be able to kind of recognize and sense the presence that you're seeing, and then disengage from it, sort of just reteach yourself again and again. Okay, that's not me, that's this person. In order to do that, you have to be really good with projection. Meaning I can't live my life projecting a lot on other people, or there's no possibility that I'm going to be able to discern the difference between me and that other person, which means I actually can't see other people. It's a really cool, it's like built in. You have to have a certain graduation of spiritual maturity in order to get deeper and to become more aware of others, because otherwise you're just, it's way too easy to be like, oh yeah, I see you have this problem. And it's like, no, that's your problem, Mr. Trying to read people spiritually person. Until you're able to know pretty clearly, this is mine, that's theirs, you can't go through this process. And I had enough. Part of it is the commitment to keep asking this question again and again, and it works. And at a certain point, I owned myself enough that I could see beyond myself enough to start serving others in this way. This woman worked with me for years and still is very dear to me. She had been beaten and raped repeatedly by her husband for years. She was no longer with him, but he lived somewhat nearby. The process of tracing it was easy. Like, it was so clear that it was impossible not to be with. But knowing what to do about that was terrifying. Needs to be. One of the key things we did was work on differentiating, what was hers, what was theirs. Like, most people, usually men, who are violent with their partner have a reason in their head, and they try to make them equivalent, right? Now, I think most of us would agree that violence against the one you love is just, there's no question in there. For someone who's lost in doing it, they are doing a false equivalency. Like, she hurt me by doing this, So I hurt her by doing this. I had to do this. In fact, this is a real language. I cancel people. I am the king of woke and in my spirit, in my soul. And I function that way for you if you need it occasionally. I cancel people. If someone who has been important to me as an entertainer, as a teacher, as a presence, as an actor, as a musician, if their behavior goes beyond a certain boundary, I don't care what else they give. It's not accepted. Too concerning that there's taint in everything they do. Sean Connery's canceled. Dude doubled down defending hitting women as a normal part of life. There are a lot of men who think this way. And, they're not going to do it on television much anymore. Sean Connery did. But the reality is, they think in terms of these equivalencies. A woman is freaking out, so I can hit her. This woman was very willing to own everything that she'd done. Because she'd done plenty they were fighting, He just always used this to win. But that still leaves a karma in it. Everyone still needs to address their own karma. And she did. She addressed her own karma very humbly, in a way that she was not taking the blame for the violence. It was well done. And at a certain point, I had a dream, years in, because I was learning about contracts and how deeply contracts are present. You make a contract and it doesn't go away when your physical real world interactions do. And in this dream, I stood in front of him as he tried to hit her, and I stopped him. And he died. For real. It wasn't that day. It was soon. And the boundary, I saw his desperation. I saw his pain. I saw and cared about the fact that he was really hurt. When you take your pain beyond a boundary, where you're inflicting more damage than has been done on you in an attempt to stop the damage that's being done to you, this, my dear people, is the cycle of karma. When he died, I went underneath what was there. You know what I found? The curse of their grandparents. The curse of their great-grandparents who had taken this land. You can't kill everybody, drive them away, and expect that they're gone. They're not gone. There's a reason there's so much violence in the United States of America. There's a reason there's such an extraordinary gun culture. There's a reason there's so many people with what we call mental illnesses diagnosed and drugged on a daily basis. This suffering is a reflection of what happened here. This suffering is a reflection of what lives underneath the karmic curse. And you don't have to imagine a Native American shaman looking over the ashes of his village, saying a prayer and burning the right herbs and cursing the white people. It doesn't work like that. The karma itself is the curse. You kill someone to make them disappear and take their land. You live on their bones, and their bones speak. And that karma gets shifted. It might not be as pronounced. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, but it can be digested over extended periods of time, which makes our children sick with what we are calling mental illnesses. You cannot take land, destroy lives, and think that it's over. It's not over. The people I trust in this future that we are entering, it's very simple. It's very, very simple. I trust the rainbow. And this is so simple. It's such a beautiful simplicity. I trust those who trust the rainbow. That's it. It doesn't mean I love everybody as family. In fact, last week's channeling from Shiva really shocked me. It really helped drive this point deeper in than ever. I don't know if you noticed, but I started the channeling with a prayer, and I really appreciate doing it this way. He immediately contradicted my prayer. He said, you can't treat the whole world as a family. And when we talked later more, he's emphasizing the same lesson I was taught by a Hopi elder. Treat those as family who treat those as family who treat the rainbow as family. It's really beautiful. I was raised Christian. I was raised Scottish, English, mostly heritage with deep Celtic influences. I am the one who brings this color to the rainbow. I am more the rainbow than others who say this is the only color. This green that we bear, no, green is not better than red or pink or yellow or purple. It's so very, very simple. It's very, very simple. And yet the world is covered in those who won't make this choice. Now, make no mistake, I think a lot of you need to be challenged more deeply, and I've been praying for how to do that in an effective way. The errors I have been working to avoid are largely in overdoing it. Overdoing it is something that typically seems to happen when teachers, spiritual teachers in particular, bring folks in a movement past the boundaries of what we've known. They, boring as hell, they get caught in the same dynamics of corruption with money and sex. And, they just do the same goddamn pattern. Every single time they go beyond it, they're like, really, I'm so important. The world should be covered in my babies. It's just like, it's pretty pathetic. They go beyond the boundaries of human and they become something else, and they convince themselves that they have the right to write their own rules. Ironically, they always write the same stupid rules, and their community suffer. So whatever good they bring is tainted. Don't buy yogi tea. The gift of their experience is that it's so pronounced in psychic space that I can recognize it and go, don't go that way. The reason this matters so much is because we are trying to create something beyond the boundaries of what we've known. We are trying to create something that is not fundamentally going to teach us that Christians are better than Jews, are better than Muslims, are better than Buddhists, are better than Hindus, are better than, well, we are better than Scientologists. But when we make discriminations, what we're doing is we're recognizing the inherent value systems. I don't discriminate based on needing another. Again, this is very simple. This is very simple. You can learn to determine if someone's doing this quite simply. It's not complicated. Everybody wants to make their own problems complicated. It's not complicated. Do you need to have another in order to be what you think you are? It's the only question you need to ask in most contexts to discern who someone is. Is someone depending on identifying another? Don't do that. That means you have an inherent projection. Any group or individual, any community that is depending on otherizing other groups, other people, based on anything, star-bellied sneeches, color, creed, type of hair, whatever. If you need to have another to reject, that is a veto. No, you're not in the rainbow. But we don't need to do anything. They veto themselves by essentially saying, I don't like yellow. I won't accept yellow. Well, then you can't be in the rainbow. You got to bring your color to the rainbow. Similarly, if you look at me and say, you're green, those other green people over there are real assholes. You better do something about them. No, I can't take full responsibility for everyone who's green. I'm not going to stand in between them and you and get myself killed. I'm not going to do it. I'm not signing up for that. I am not here to do that. In fact, I'm not going to do what I did in that dream for you all. I'm not your protector. I was still learning not to be a protector. I was still learning how to be a protector in a way that's healthy. It's far better to teach you spiritual self-defense than to promise you I can be with you all the time. I can't. Can't do that for more than a dozen people. Really. I'm not that good yet. Maybe one day I will be. But I'm encouraging you, I'm inviting you to commit to understanding that as you align your consciousness with a rainbow, all you're saying is the rainbow's more important than any one color. You are not disavowing the color. In fact, you are bringing the color to the rainbow. You are bringing your color to the rainbow. It's a gift. It's a potluck. It is the pot at the end of the rainbow. You are bringing your essence into this. You're not being asked to disavow your essence, nor are you being asked to take full responsibility for everybody else who you grew up with, or who looks like you, or who shares some of the same prayers even. Still be you and prioritize the rainbow. Now, I know that might seem difficult, but understand it is crucial. And I'm going to use a radical example. Now, when I was young, I was coming out of New York City. I was living a lifestyle of privilege, if you want to use that word. I'm not totally keen on the word, but I was channeled into, a success path in the mainstream business world. And I was working in the financial district. And so I ended up learning about this guy, George Soros. Now, George Soros might have criticisms that worst one I've seen is that he married someone 40 years younger than him, which I have no patience for. And he's a very interesting human being. So it's good to learn from everyone who has something valuable to teach you, if you can do it without being tainted. George Soros made $1 billion in a day. He was the chairman of the first group that ever did that. And the way he did it really taught a lesson that everyone could learn. I think I can explain this. The European Union was establishing the euro as a common currency, but they still had all their individual currencies. To establish the euro is, it has a lot to do with trust. There's a momentum going where people have to trust it enough to use it in order to trust it in order to use it. And if there isn't enough flow, if there isn't enough opportunity for it to, you get this money and you trust that it's money, and then you can give it to someone else and they're going to use it as money. If you can't do that, it's not going to work. But in order for this to work, banks have to do things to kind of like regulate how much. If there's too many euros out there, the price of things will start to go up. And so people will say, well, I've got 20 euros and I've only got 1 mark, so I'm going to use my euros, and then they're going to raise the relative price. So you'll have to pay more in euros than in marks. So banks have to regulate how much currency is in circulation. So the Bundesbank, the German bank, was put in charge of regulating the euro, but they were also in charge of regulating the mark. George Soros's group, whether this is ethical or not is not the question. They just identified that the Bundesbank was biased. They were in charge of regulating both the mark and the euro, but if they could be pushed in the right way, they would be forced to make a choice. And Soros's circle set them up to make a choice, and they did. They bet right. The Bundesbank chose the mark, and Soros's group had profited by buying ahead of time, predicting that's what they would do. And the bank lost the money. Like, the bank lost that much money because they pressed them in this way. So I'm not condoning this kind of activity. I just understand it. And I think it's valuable to know how, or at least to know someone who knows how. This is you. You are the Bundesbank. Allow me to explain. You have a life. You have a life going. In your life, you've got whatever happens, happens. You've got a balance of forces between all the individuals you love. You have this relationship, this job commitment, this affinity with a community organization, whatever it is you do, this affinity with a trail you walk every day. All of this has an economics to it, a spiritual economics. How much do you have to invest? How do you choose to invest? Ultimately, your time. Typically, individuals from within communities are driven to an edge of the way their community works and end up asking questions that lead them into spiritual growth. And you're asking questions because the way you're living isn't reconciling. There's something off. There's some pressures, anxieties, challenges, hopes, even extreme dreams that are calling you. But all of it is to say that your normal life patterns are not answering certain possibilities, potentials, or pains or wounds within you. So you stretch, you go beyond the boundaries of things as they have been. The problem is that can ruffle feathers. When you are challenged to center in what you're becoming, center in the calling that moves you, will you stop because people around you complain? I say these not knowing what could happen. All I know is I burned every bridge I had in order to stay with what I'm doing. And I can't hesitate based on ruffling your feathers. Now, I'm not speaking to any individual or set of circumstances. I'm speaking to a pattern I see within myself of being too easy on you. And I think it's misleading. I'm kind of goofy, geeky, I hope. I don't think that's lost on you, but it could be misleading. The resolve it takes to center in what you become, what you are becoming, has a mathematics to it. There are measurable levels that you have to be able to hold. And that math can be too upsetting to other people. It can upset other people, and they don't know that it's math they're reacting against. They don't understand it's your vibe they're reacting against. They'll identify something else. But the truth of it is, there are limits that you are being forced to live within based on tacit and unspoken threats from other people. And make no mistakes, they don't know. I am far from encouraging you to get in fights with people. It's almost always useless in my experience. There are only key circumstances when sort of direct confrontations make sense. People don't know what they're objecting to. It's subconscious. It's that you are presencing enough intensity that they are somehow forced to deal with things they don't want to deal with. Now, we're stitching together a lot of themes together here, people. Right now, for the next decade, solar flares are going to be acting up more and more. You can look online to see these. Now, people have different answers of what's going to happen, but honestly, it's fairly simple, fairly straightforward. We're more in touch with our soul. This is not a pun. Your soul is that part of you which exists in relationship to this sun. So your soul is something you can carry when you visit the moons of Jupiter. Oh, you can visit the moons of Jupiter. Your soul transcends the incarnations you have on this planet. Your soul contains the memory of what you've done on Mars and Neptune. Neptune's the welcome center for the sun in many cases, by the way. When you get in touch with remembering these things, you are in much deeper relationship with your soul. The challenge is to just be in relationship to your soul, is to flush your system. This is the river and the stream, people. Watch the video again. When you are flushing your system, you're channeling more soul through you. You're waking up the Shiva and Shakti, the Ida and Pingala channels around the Sushumna, and you're moving more energy through your body. When you move more energy through your body, everything wakes up. That's what's happening in the world. And it will keep happening for the next 10 years. Soul sees. When I got in touch with my soul, I eventually started to see energy. I see the energy that you share all the time. All the time. And when you see it, it becomes more real. When you see it within yourself, which you might experience as feeling probably both, it actually gets more pronounced. That's why people can't afford to let themselves feel it until you reach a certain sort of presence of spiritual maturity. As you see and feel it, I'm inviting you to realize something very simple. This is very simple, but this is the bank metaphor, people. If you hold this and entertain it and go, wow, that's neat, or go, I wonder, and then just go back to your normal life, you are annoying me. It drags on me, and I have to kind of create distance with you spiritually. And believe me, I do. And that affects you. It affects you if you start to hold me and then you like entertain it, like dipping your toe. Imagine you're sitting at the edge of the water and you're looking out into the fog and you want to go somewhere over there that someone's told you there's an island over there. I'm telling you there's an island over there, but you can't see it. You could just see a stone. And so I'm telling you where the stone is. I'm showing you, and you can see that stone. And so you're tapping the stone with your foot. And it's like, it's bigger than this much away from the shore. So you really have to reach your leg out. It's unnerving to rest your weight on that stone. So you're just tapping it. You're keeping your back leg grounded. If you keep your back leg grounded on this, you're not going to rest your weight on that stone, and you'll never know if you can trust that stone to bear your weight. There's no other way to do it other than test it a little and then shift your weight onto the leg that's resting on the stone. This is a metaphor, people. When I tell you you could visit Neptune, do you think that's kind of interesting? I have to tell you, I am impatient with how little reaction I get when I say things like this. This is fucking true. This is really how it works. But at a certain point, you have to be able to rest your weight on the path that reveals this to you. And if you don't rest your weight on it, you can't stay in the energy. It ends up being, I'm not going to carry you. The reason this matters so deeply is this. You must stop identifying with your color. Let those who have ears hear. You are not more Islamic or Jewish or Christian or Hindu or Buddhist than you are a soul. You are not more of any of these because you have been others. Beings don't play a critical role in cultural decision-making who have not lived lifetimes in other ethnicities. Some beings do live their lives with the same communities of people over and over again. There are repeated and beautiful accounts of villages reincarnating with each other over the course of centuries. But typically they do it in different cultures. Now, everyone does not cover the globe. Some beings do stick to some cultures much more than others. But that's still, in a very deep way, a choice. You are the soul that incarnated into a body, and you must transcend your identity that says us, and this is us. This is us. People give us rage. My wife is Jewish. Her mother grew up in Israel. People give us rage all the time. Just happened yesterday. Got slammed with the rage. If you knew the agonizing that goes into these questions, I am not going out into the countryside. I am not walking 3 blocks away from here to stop people from fighting. I have little children. I make a choice not to put myself in danger of dying for the sake of other people who are fighting. It's true. I don't think I would always make that decision. There are plenty of circumstances in which I could make the decision to help stop fights. I have certainly far more often before I had children. But there is no way I'm taking responsibility for everyone who looks like me. I will take responsibility for those of you who take responsibility with me for the world. I identify as the rainbow. And I will call those who identify as the rainbow with me family. I do not protect everyone who grew up as an Episcopalian anymore. George Bush is an Episcopalian. George Bush was fundamentally instrumental in killing 1 million Iraqi civilians. 1 million! 1 million! And I did not fight that enough. I spoke up and moved on. We haven't learned how to stop this force, people. We haven't learned how to stop this mass desire to identify by ethnicity and hate other people, blame other people. Say, there are this many American soldiers who died. You know what they did for all those years? They listed how many American soldiers who died. And as long as, the numbers stayed down below 10,000, I guess that's not so many people. Didn't come out until years later. Hundreds of thousands. And at what thresholds is this okay? Why is 1,000 okay and 100,000 not okay? I think it starts by just getting your mind around the truth. At least be engaging the truth. When we live in such a way that depends on allowing other people's suffering and then silencing that suffering, you create festering hate. And if you think you don't have anything to do with that festering hate having been created, the Bible, which Jews know as the Torah, very, it's edited, like they're different, but fundamentals are remarkably consistent. It has all sorts of stories of different eras in history. And in these eras, they tried out different rules. People joke about this some with conservative Christians because they try to say, I believe the Bible. The Bible has contradictory explanations for almost every situation. You should do this. You shouldn't do this. If you do this, you'll be into heaven. If you do this, you should be stoned to death. Like, they have all sorts of contradictions in there. You can't possibly live by all of them. But part of the premise, as my father taught me, is that they tried all these things. They tried living by all these standards. And they're showing us what happened. You can't bomb people to smithereens and convince them to never stand up again. And you certainly can't convince them not to hate you. You will never have safety if your supposed, I don't want to call it peace. You can't beat someone into submission and ever have peace, because if you don't feel their hatred in the room, you are numb. If you wake up to the true living power of being in a human body as a spirit, you will feel when people hate you. Now, you can learn a dynamic response. If they hate you for all the wrong reasons, you will learn how to be immune to their hatred. But you do have to learn how to do it. You have to learn to discern whether your actions are deserving of hatred. And I assure you, if you have killed their family and burned their peach trees, which is what happened here in my local community, they came through and they burned the peach trees, killed the women and children, and drove everyone away. And then they built the town I live in. It's still here. Domestic abuse is direct relation to this atrocity. The curse is there. You can't just say, oh, I don't believe in spirits, and make it go away. It's resonant. The karma of how land is taken lives on. And how many cultures in the world live on the backs of the bruised? I'd suggest there are very few communities in the world that don't have atrocities beneath their feet. And learning to deal with these atrocities as a presence, as something that's here now. The past is present. History is here. Learning to deal with the resonance of these atrocities is a fundamental step we need to take as cultures. And most of the people I look like live in communities that don't even, they have 3 steps away not wanting to believe in the mechanisms that would allow us to address these presences. Just don't want to believe in it. This is the way we evolved in Christian cultures. Just pretend it's all not real. Just block it. And there's a function to this approach. There's a function. The functionality says, if I don't believe in it, I won't reinforce it, and I will generate, my attention will be here, and I will make this stronger. But it's a lie. This is the devil's game in a very, very real way. It always has been. Say this doesn't exist and lie and say this is real. And what it does is it invests your energy in this. So there's something happening, right? I get to invest my energy in what I'm saying, but it's built on rotten foundations. Like Radiohead, steak to frozen shit. Steak something in frozen shit. It might be solid as long as it's frozen, but you heat up, that shit's going to be shit. It's going to be stinking and no purchase. What you built will just crumble. This is the same way reality works. The only safety is to get down below it. I get down below it, people. I get down below it every week. Every week, something crazy happens around me. If I need to, I smoke tobacco. I know how to smoke tobacco and get beneath the vibration of threat. It's incredible. It's very effective. When I do it correctly, I have to keep my focus exactly on it. I make a prayer. I feel the presence of the prayer. I focus and breathe in rhythm with the resonance of the prayer. It takes me beneath the resonance of the curse, the karmic curse. I get beneath it. I hold it. And then I have to transmute it for a couple of days. I got a real doozy yesterday. But it gives me the power to do yoga. It's fuel for yoga when you do it right. This is about expanding the range of vibration we live within. But I'm telling you, we've got to clean the house up vibrationally. You have to clean up your vibrational house, which includes your ancestry. You don't have a choice. But the effective way to engage it is to realize that you are karmically responsible for your ancestry, but you are the spirit having a human experience. So you don't have to live it in exactly the same way. Now think about that. If you identify as your heritage, and it's a deep part of what you are, which for many is true, you're thinking of yourself, you're feeling, you're living your life as an extension of your heritage, and you're knowing them as you in a way, right? If you live it this way, you fail to see the true breadth of our existence. Because what if you were the slave that was beaten by your great-great-grandfather? This is how Gaia works. She does these intricate interweavings. And now, if you are someone who lives in an oppressed community and you hate me, be careful. Be careful. Maybe I am the Native American who you killed 200 years ago. You must be able to rest in this kind of decisive understanding of yourself, or you will live indecision. You will just be blown around by the forces around you. You won't be able to expand yourself into your full presence. And your full presence will include all these rooms in a house that you can't enter and can't clean. You can't enter them because the only way to go through those doors is to be the truth. You have to be the truth of what you are. And that truth is that you're a spiritual being having a human experience who's probably visited Neptune. Now, I say this because at a certain point, you cross a threshold where this stuff starts to become the thoughts you're thinking. You get in touch with your soul enough, and your soul doesn't forget these things. It's your spiritual self that you incarnated into. Your spirit is your presence on the earth that transcends lifetimes. Really get this in there. Your spirit is your presence on the earth that transcends lifetimes. Now, if you don't like my definitions, that's fine. Thoth taught me this. But understand the differentiation. Your soul is the energy you bring to earth. Your spirit is your energy on earth that transcends multiple lifetimes. When you start to get in touch with your soul, you're reaching beyond your presence on the earth. So it gives you a perspective of your entire spirit. Your spirit tree remembers all your lifetimes. And so if you're unwilling to address the breadth of your being, you can't expand. It's like that's why I keep hammering these issues. And that's why I keep inviting you to realize you can't just play around with it like it's a game. Hold truth. If you ever get into doubt, say truth, 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 truth. Because there's truth to this stuff. If I'm making up a story and it's just coming through me, it won't last. It'll evaporate when confronted with the sword of truth. The sword of truth is pure light from the sun. It's an eternal presence that will destroy anything that's fabricated, anything that's a lie. Be it. And in being it, you generate the light that refuses to allow lies to live around you. But these lies are what we are built on in this culture. Now, in India and many places, many other places in the world don't have much of a trouble addressing the fact that life is cyclical. Reality goes in cycles that change and reform, and that we have all lived many lifetimes. It's not like the world is in agreement about this, but I'd say it's far more likely that anyone who gravitates towards I'm sure there are plenty of Indian computer executives who are like, they're wrong. This is my only life. I'm going to make a lot of money. I don't know. I don't want to piss anybody off here, but understand it's time that the westernized forces in the world wake up to the truth of these boundaries. And the only way to do it that I know is to trust the wisdom of other cultures. At a certain point, I found myself out west. I went to visit a Native American elder. She was performing with a musician. It was really beautiful. It's this folk musician from out west. And they would interplay. They had songs. She would sing a chorus of a song and then just make background music within the key while this Native American woman, Hopi elder, shared the Hopi prophecies. And she said several things that have remained challenging to integrate, but I have rested upon nonetheless. She said they knew that white people would come. They knew the buffalo would die and be replaced by cattle. They knew train tracks would cover the lands. They knew houses that moved would cover the lands. They knew that wires would cover the lands, all well before Europeans landed on these shores. Actually, there's a fair amount of evidence that the Vikings were over here, and even more that the Carthaginians and Phoenicians were making regular visits to South America. The point is mass movement of peoples that raped and killed straight across this land was predicted. They knew it was going to happen. And she taught me this terrifying, terrifying response to say, you're talking to me because you lived here before they did. She was very sort of matter of fact about it. That's who she was reaching for. She was reaching for native spirits. And she said it was their prophecy that we would incarnate as the children of the children of the children who took these lands. And that when we did, we would feel the pull to learn the old ways. And it would be medicine for us, as it has been medicine for me. And then she said, when you encounter people of oppressed communities that hate you, just hold in your heart, maybe they are the soldier who killed the buffalo and the Native Americans on the plains. Maybe they are that soldier. Just hold it in your heart. And it's proved incredibly protective for me. I don't even say it out loud. I'm telling you because she taught me. And there's truth to this. So you don't make it up as an argument. You say maybe, and you hold it, and they'll leave. They'll leave. They don't want to be tickled to remember their past lives because they're going to have to remember what they did in their past life. Be careful what you judge. Be careful what you judge, because it is likely that you are judging someone who has done something you've done or similar. And these lessons stayed with me. She taught me that. And these lessons stayed with me. And she said, our final prophecy is that a blue light would appear in the sky. When the blue light appears, it is a remembrance of approaching the earth and incarnating into bodies. And it is the foil that allows you to get in touch with your soul. And the others who do this will come from every nation and every color. The hue man are those who awaken in many cultures, in many traditions, and bring our color together to make a rainbow. And it is a simple differentiation. Do you own your presence as a part of the rainbow? Do you know your brothers and sisters, your family, as others who own the rainbow? And at a certain point, it's a basic choice. When push comes to shove, when you're threatened, are you going to defend someone who looks like you and says the same prayers, who's murdering to take space for a home for themselves? Do you defend that person because they look like you and say the same prayers you do? Or do you defend others who know you as part of the rainbow, others who know themselves as part of the rainbow? It's a question. $56. Look at that. Shiva just said, it's enough. And I'm holding Shiva these days. You can see it in my face, right? Should be able to. I retune. I can see it in my face when I retune with Shiva, or retune with Thoth. Changes me. It's pretty intense. So forgive me for not being able to read well this week. As I said, I wanted to be more engaging with you, and I hope I have been, just in another way. This is very important to get out. It is heartbreaking for me to know what's happening in Israel now. When I was younger, I had an argument with a dear Jewish friend, and I was sort of wholly defending Palestinians. And they said, I don't understand how that isn't just defending the underdog. And that really got me, because the fact of the matter is, as long as any two communities are hating each other and they're not learning to share, it's a little bit, it's our moral right, it's our moral calling to aim for the love that would allow coexistence. But simply flipping it, no. You're never going to find an argument that proves that one side is better than another in these contexts. No, we prove it ourselves. Our actions prove it. Karma proves it. Ultimately, I believe everyone needs to understand spiritual Aikido. I'm going to leave you with that. Spiritual Aikido is the ability to redirect hostility that's directed at you back upon itself. And thus, if someone vents at you a little, they will get hurt a little. And if someone vents at you a lot, they will get hurt a lot. But they determine it. You have nothing to do with it. Now, people could falsely claim, you did that to me, therefore I will hit you, and you made that happen. No. That's different. What I'm saying is, it is possible to redirect spiritual energy before action has been created back upon its source. It's very possible. And since I learned to do this, I've been extremely safe walking through extraordinary circumstances again and again and again. I've been very safe because I do not hate others. I do not judge others as I move through the world. And when others attempt to hate or judge me, it just flips back on them, often with very little effort on my part. So you have to set this as a goal before you learn it. And to the extent you want to learn it, come take the courses. That's what they're for. This is what we're leading you into. Final prayer. I tuned in with Allah. It's not something I've done a lot. immediately invited me to realize that the presence we know as Allah is the link to God and oneness, but it is a distinct presence from others. And I said, what do we do? How do you pray in circumstances like these? He said, let those who hate each other the most die first. Everybody wants their story to be more complicated. Everybody wants their problems to be something that no other people could understand. And then you could even like get really mad if I weigh in and offer my insight, because what the hell do I know? I'll tell you none of these problems are really that complicated. You need love to be more powerful than fear. You need hope to be more powerful than hate. Now, that's a lot of work. That could be daily wrestling with feelings for years, but it's simple. A people without hope, suicidal. It's not about fault. It's about a puzzle. How do you fix it? There has to be hope. If there isn't hope, there's only hate left underneath. If there's hate left underneath, you'll never be safe. You can't scare someone who hates you into compliance. They're not afraid to die anymore. They don't have anything to live for. And even if you kill them all, the curse of the karma of that action will live. It'll poison your children and their children. It does. All over the United States of America, children are afraid to go to school. Because the hatred that leads to school shootings is present in every community. And I encourage you to recognize that hatred in many, many cases traces back to the way this land was taken. You want to know who sent in my land, in my region of the Finger Lakes? A man named Sullivan came through. He was sent through with revolutionary veterans of the Revolutionary War, presumably the most violent and landless, familyless of them. And they came through here and they killed whole villages, burned the peach orchards. They burned the peach orchards because the peaches were a primary source of food and home. So by destroying the orchards, they were eliminating ownership. They were eliminating the sense of home. And, the villages didn't cover everything. They were just all, here and there. It was not as densely packed. And they did this anyway. George Washington sent Sullivan to do that. We don't like taking a look at the past, but we have to, because our children are sick and our children's children's children will be sick until we heal these karmas. And before we heal the old ones, in many cases, we have to even teach our communities and societies not to create new ones. You can't bomb the world into peace. Let those who hate each other first die, and let those who love the most be safe, be well, be strong, be whole, and thrive.